Hello and welcome to the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight presented by Sports Car Market Magazine. I'm Darren Roberge. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also be sure to join in the conversation and share your thoughts by leaving us a comment below. Our guest today is automotive photographer and artist Bill Pack. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, thanks a lot, Darren. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. For those who may not be familiar with you, why don't you give us a little bit of background and tell us about yourself.
Okay. I went to photography school in Santa Barbara at the Brooks Institute. And from there, I assisted a few photographers in Dallas, Texas, and San Francisco. And then did about 20 years of advertising photography in the San Francisco area. I worked with clients like Apple Computer, Del Monte Foods, Microsoft, and Levi's. Moved out to the Southeast in the Atlanta area and continued doing advertising and then branching out into motion graphic films. And in Atlanta is where I got interested in cars, and that's how that evolved from there.
So were you always a car guy, or was this something that just kind of happened later on in your career?
I was always aware of cars. When I was about 7 years old, I was running around and I was ran past this split window Corvette, and it just like grabbed me, and I turned around and looked at it. I was like, what the heck is this? And it was like, so I had an awakening and a moment with it, but then it kind of went away for a while. I just kind of got involved in life, career, and then it came back later in life, but I kind of approached it from a different direction, where really looked at it from art and design and from the perspective of designers.
You definitely have a unique perspective, and it's interesting that you mentioned a split window Corvette, because it's that little detail across the back that makes it so unique and different. But that's really what your work is focused on, is details of cars. What techniques do you use in order to sort of capture that? Explain the process to us about how you go about walking in the room with some of these incredible cars that you shoot, and then where you go from there and how you create the work that you create from those cars.
Okay. When I first started, I would sketch out all the different shots that I wanted to get. I'd get as much information I could about the car, and then I'd go in with my lighting, and things that I didn't expect would show up. And so then I would gravitate towards those. So after a while, I kind of put the list to the side, and I always start with a profile shot. And so I do a process called painting with light, which is painting with light's been around for a long time, since actually the early studio days of photography. And what it is you take the light and you have your lens open for a long period of time, and whatever light source it is, you take it over your subject. And I had worked with that a bit in my advertising in San Francisco. There was a photographer named Aaron Jones that developed this light device called the Hose Master, where you could go in and for tabletops work and do really wonderful work, but 30, 40 minutes for exposure to do all of this. So I thought of that concept, and I thought, man, if I could refine that and do that with cars, that could really give me the freedom to express myself the way I wanted to, capture different parts of cars that under a different light that you don't normally see. And so I took that process and and so it's kind of like long strokes with it. And so I started thinking about the designers when they would work with pencil and paper, they would sketch these lines out of the car. So I tried to go through and find those main lines that the designer works with and try to accentuate those in a way that they become apparent, and show them in a way that's new and hopefully fresh, that people, haven't seen it that way before.
Well, your work is immediately recognizable. There's no question about that. So, and the detail work and the darkness surrounding the subjects that you usually shoot are definitely a component of your individual style for sure. Go a little deeper into the painting with light thing. How long does it take? What steps are involved? What is the final outcome? How can somebody know when they're looking at something that has been painted with light, essentially?
It's as far as somebody knowing what they're looking at, that's probably hard to say. But the process is I'll go into owner's collection where the cars are. We'll turn out all the lights, black out any windows or anything that's coming in. My lens will be open for about 3 or 4 minutes. I have a light. So the camera's on a tripod. I'm over by the car lighting the car so I don't see what I'm getting at the moment because I can't see what the camera's seeing. But from all the years that I've been working with cars, I have a pretty good idea how light handles and how different light heights and angles that I hold my light will respond on the car. And so I'll just go through and as I'm sculpting the car with the light, it'll reveal a different image that I hadn't seen before. So when I finish that image up, then I'll move over to the one that I saw while I was lighting. So it's a pretty organic process. And I think with most photographers, you want the image to kind of be the thing that you see first, and the dark and the light is just the way that I can use direct the eye to a particular area on the car and bring that focus and attention to that area that I'm trying to accentuate.
So would you say then that your work is more influenced by the technique, or do you influence the technique to sort of meet your expectations of what you want your work to turn out to?
I'll definitely have a vision of what I want the quality of the car to be. And so I will work with my lights to accomplish that. And the painting with light process and the way I've developed the lights help me to that end. The organic part of it is because it's a different type of light on the car, it reveals different parts of the car that you wouldn't see if you're out in just daylight. And so some of the curves and the shape of the car become more defined. So I definitely try to, I'll have a vision of what I want it to look like, and I'll work with the process to get me there. Sometimes it kind of goes on its own, and then those kind of happy accidents happen that you just go, oh, okay, that's very cool. I like that.
Are there certain elements on cars or certain types of cars specifically that when you walk into a collection to pick your subjects, you immediately get excited about? Or are there things that pop out at you differently on certain vehicles? Or do you have favorite certain types of cars that you like to shoot more so than others?
Well, the Italians from the 50s and 60s are always my favorite. There's just something about those lines and those curves that are just beautiful. I do love the Porsches as well. And some cars, the more I'm shooting with them, the more I'm learning. And so then it's like your taste refines and you kind of get drawn to different lines and different aspects of the car. But, the post-war V12s are pretty special.
Yeah, there's no question about that. The way that the light hits the front of like a 275 GTB4 with the vents on the side is a pretty nice slice of automotive design there. Same thing with the vents behind the door on the Alfa Romeo Montreal. It's very photogenic for sure.
Yes.
You've done a lot of stuff, and your work has been seen by a lot of people that may not have known it was you. Let's kind of go down your catalog of your past work. Let's start with your stuff personally first. Automotive Art Volume 1 was your book, and it is a phenomenal piece of work. I highly recommend anybody who appreciates art, cars, design, any of that stuff, pick it up. Start from the beginning on that. Where did the concept come from? What was the process like? Are you happy with the final product there? What would you have done differently? Give us the rundown.
Okay. After about a couple years putting together images, and I'd go to concourse and I'd meet with owners, I wanted to have something that was easy to show people my work. iPads and phones are hard when you're out on the field because of all the glare and everything. So I reached out and found a designer, Lionel Ferreira, and we started talking and working together. So we put together a large volume that I just had printed through Blur, which is an on-demand printing company. So I took the book around to different concours, and when it was appropriate, I'd show it to owners. And before long, there was a group of people around going, where can I get that book? I want to buy that book. And so I went back and talked to Lionel and said, hey, Lionel, this is getting a lot of attention. I'd like to go ahead and go the directions where we get this printed and be able to put that out there. And so that's how that started. And I finding Lionel was just really key to me for how that book came together. He has the ability to take whatever the subject matter is and then to elevate that and present it in a way so the design doesn't get in the way of the book. But it's all these little touches to the book that just make it something you want to hold. And there's just a lot of elements in there that he added to it that are just very subtle, but they all make a huge, huge difference in the final presentation. So that's how that book came into existence. And then I was doing a book signing at Amelia Island, and had the book there, and actually met a gentleman by the name of Carter Emerson, who is with the Phoenix Art Museum. And so the automotive art book led to then the discussion going forward for the Legends of Speed project that I did for the Phoenix Art Museum. And so it was like that book led to that. And Legends of Speed was just that was a pretty amazing project. Got to travel around, I think made an extensive road trip, did about 13,000 miles, coast to coast, everywhere in between to shoot 21 iconic race cars that the Phoenix Art Museum was going to display at the museum. So that was a real special project. And then that kind of grew and then started discussions with Jason Van Sickle over at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. So it's like each project then kind of led to another one. And then after COVID and after the time was right, then talks started for the news project coming up, which is called Epic Drama for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum.
That Legend of Speed project, I'm sure, was fantastic. And I'll tell you, driving down Central Avenue there by the museum and seeing your work displayed on the side of the building on a giant banner, you knew it was going to be good. Yeah. And that was a fabulous collection of cars, no question about it. So let's talk your current project, Epic Drama, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum project. 34 cars ranging from 1911 to 1990. And you shot them all. Let's talk about that project and how that came to be, a little more detail, and what it entailed, and when we can get that into our hands to check out for ourselves.
Okay. Well, this project, we started talking about the project last summer, and Joe Hale is the new president at the museum, and Jason had showed him some of my work and the two books that he had, and started a conversation with Joe. And Joe wanted to have an art book of cars. He didn't want necessarily just another car book, because he wanted something that would present things in a different light. And so Joe and I lined up aesthetically on everything we were talking about. They had some things to kind of sort out, and then he got back to me in April of this year and said, "How soon? If we got this going, how soon can you be out here?" And I said, "Well, I got a few things that I clear off. I can be out pretty soon." So he called me back shortly thereafter and said, "Okay, it's a go." And I had to be out there and start shooting on April 15th. So I didn't have a big window to get out there. But before I got out there, I we were talking about writers, and Dwight Knowlton, who became a friend through Instagram. We had been communicating a lot, and I happened to be in Phoenix at the time that Joe pulled the trigger. So I got together with Dwight, talked to him about it. He had an extremely tight schedule, but he was very excited about it. And so he came on to do the writing. And Dwight just did an awesome job with it. We just wanted to find a singular voice through the whole book, the same way we had the singular vision on the imagery, so it was all cohesive. And so he spent, oh gosh, I mean, intensive amount of research to come up with these just little snippets, little stories to go through that could present the cars through text in a different way than they've been presented before. I went to the museum and started shooting, and it was quite an experience. Being at Indy during May is always a special thing, but being down in the basement of the museum, shooting these cars while there's cars out on the track preparing for the 500, that was pretty special. But the basement of the museum, if you've ever been down there, is just amazing. There are, I don't know, a couple hundred cars just down in the basement of the museum that are not up on the main floor. And I know they have special tours where you can go down through the basement and view those cars. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so it took about a month. I probably went through the cars had to keep on a pace a little quicker than what I typically would do. But, we got through 34 cars. And then after that was finished up, I handed it off to Lionel, who designed my first book. He is designer on this book, and he just did an outstanding job with it. And we couldn't be happier. And the museum is pretty happy as well. And it's like there's so many people involved in making a project like this happen. Joe's staff at the museum were just phenomenal, just helping out however we needed. So there's so many other people behind the scenes. The people that do all the restoration on the cars, they're getting all the cars ready for the Indianapolis 500 for the parade and for displaying there. And then they got this photographer down in the basement going, okay, I need cars. And so I probably wasn't on their most favorite list of people at the moment, but they came on and they supported it, and they were just great. But couldn't have done it without those guys just getting the cars ready. I mean, the last week we were shooting, some of the cars were still in pieces on the floor that they had to get it together, but we made it, and it was just a wonderful experience doing that. You sit there and working with the cars and just thinking about all the history involved there and just all the innovation, and to be able to see that from car to car to car as things would change, even within the same decades, just to see little changes that were made and how the lines changed and how the stance of the cars changed. It was just phenomenal, and it's just one of those very special projects and experiences.
The journey that the book takes you on really is incredible, and a lot of that it has to do with what you're talking about here, where you see the changes and difference from year to year in the cars in particular. So, what was the process to choose the cars? Was that something you did? Was that something the museum did? Like, why 34 cars? What was sort of the rationale behind all that?
Right. Well, the museum is looking to expand its base of participants, and they wanted to start reaching out into an art and design community and make it more than just car enthusiasts, so that you can appreciate these cars for that they're works of art. And so the 34 cars were the winning cars that the museum has in their collection. They have many cars in there, but these 34 were the ones that have won in Indianapolis in the past. So that seemed to be a good starting point for the first book. Maybe, we'll see how this does. There may be more, but this made the most sense because that's really, the crown jewels that they have there in the museum. And now they have a lot of other special things in there too, but these were pretty unique. So that's how the 34 came to be.
It's really an interesting group of cars for sure. And we're talking, everything from, you name it. There's European, there's American, there's a little bit of everything there. And it really puts into perspective how epic the Indy 500 is and what an incredible feat it is and an important feat it is for manufacturers to try and conquer. So it's really a really great read. And I'll tell you, from the art perspective, it is an astonishing piece of work. I mean, it is a work of art that you hold in your hand. The graphic design that was done on it, the way that it incorporates your amazing photography with the incredible cars, it's really something that people should absolutely check out. So, Bill, you're out in the world. You've got probably more intimate knowledge of some of the most important cars of the world than just about anybody. So why don't you give us one car to buy, one car to sell, and one car to hold in today's marketplace?
Well, I think here again, I come from what I would buy from a different perspective. I think, there's one that I've been watching that I've been appreciating the lines and just kind of how it's coming along. Is just the Dino Ferrari just has some beautiful lines on it, and it has the story behind it is wonderful. And then the kind of the car that preceded it, which was the Fiat Dino. Those are kind of interesting pairing to have together if you for a collection. I think when it comes to sell, it'd be anything that you're not passionate about. I mean, if it doesn't give you pleasure and if it doesn't give you, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's not of an interest, shouldn't be hanging on to it because so at least from my perspective, and hold, just hold whatever it is that you love. And that continues to bring you enjoyment and pleasure.
I mean, that's what it's all about is enjoying the cars that you love and making your dreams come true with, through automotive means. And you have contributed to our Dino versus Daytona war. The Dinos are definitely winning at this point. And I agree with you. That is a wonderful, wonderful car that has been underappreciated for a long time. So now's the time. It's nice to see it finally getting its due. Any final thoughts?
From personal level and just working, what I try to do that has brought me a lot of satisfaction is what I'm working on things is, a lot of times my photographs don't work out the way I intend them to. And being able to get to a point where you say, it's okay to fail. Kind of have that freedom to be able to do that because it's that exploration. It's that trying new things that leads to innovation. And when I was down in the museum looking at these cars and realizing how many people were involved to get them onto the track and let alone win the 500, the predecessors before that, there was a lot of failure before they got to that point. And it's like, if you're not failing enough, you're not going to succeed enough.
It's amazing how the biggest failures tend to lead to the biggest wins in the end. So I think there's no better example of that than auto racing. And certainly something as monumental and as difficult a hill to climb as the Indy 500. Where can people go to learn more about you?
They can go to my website at v12enterprises.com. I'm also on Instagram at V12 Enterprises, and I have V12 Enterprises on Facebook as well.
I would like to thank my guest, Bill Pack, for joining us today. To learn more about anything that we discussed here, be sure to pick up the latest issue of Sports Car Market Magazine by visiting the link in the video description down below. As a reminder, if you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay on top of future episodes. I'm Darren Roberge, and thank you for joining us on the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight.